Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Maury Aronson, the Director of Artistic Programs at Global Arts Live. Global Arts Live is a not-for-profit presenting organization located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We present our concerts in venues in Cambridge, Boston, and Somerville. Tonight, we are joined by Raphael Xavier to talk more about his new work, The Musician and the Mover, that we will present this Friday and Saturday at the ICA Theater in Boston. It's been like 6 years, feels like 10 since you were last in Boston in 2016. And I'm so looking forward to this. I cannot tell you and our audience how excited I am about seeing this performance on Saturday and Friday this weekend. But before we go there, Raf, can you share your journey with us as a hip hop dancer and a breaking practitioner? How did this all, when and how did this start for you?
Yeah, man.
It's been a long journey.
Yeah, it has. It almost is like overnight though. It feels like so quick. I know it's been a long time and it's so fast. I saw breaking in 1983 on television on Soul Train, and I'd started school that fall in the 7th grade, and when I went to school, the kids had already been doing it. So I'd been behind already because I didn't live in the city. And so in a matter of 2 years, I practiced, with my friends and stuff as much as possible, and always felt like I wasn't good enough to practice with the guys I saw doing it. So me and my friends would just practice amongst ourselves. And then the following year, some of those guys had gone to other schools and they went to high school. So it was just me and my friends. But the school decided that if we were caught breaking, we were expelled from school. So we started hiding to practice. And long story short, man, I found something interested in it, and I just kept pushing and exploring the little bit of moves that I knew, and the vocabulary was very small at that time. And the television or any friends that had cousins in different areas, that's the only way we could get it. So when that was cut off, we didn't know what to do. We didn't have anything to do. So everybody just dropped the ball, and it wasn't a trend anymore. It wasn't an in thing to do. So you would call corny, but I ended up going to meeting a couple of people as time went on, and I met some guys from Rennie Harris Pure Movement at the time, and this was probably 95, 96 or so, and at the time, I just felt like breaking was the greatest dance in the world. Like you couldn't hold a match. There was no other dances that could match that. And so Cricket told me that Rennie was holding auditions for a hip hop version of Romeo and Juliet. And I was like, man, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. It was hip hop dances against breakers. I was like, nah, I'm good on that. And I actually went to a show they did it in Delaware one time, and I was like, wow, that's amazing, because there was only one breaker. That was Brandon Albright. He was the only breaker in the group. Everyone else were hip-hop dancers, house dancers. So the way they put that stuff together was so well done. I was like, that might be the only thing that is better than breaking. The cohesiveness and the power of what they were doing as a group dynamically was better than breaking. And so then I thought about it, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll go to this audition, and I went on I think it was the very last day after about 2 years of like denying it. And Rennie was like, yo, I heard a lot about you. I'm glad you came. Just get in where you fit in. And that was my introduction to other forms of hip hop that were done very strong by those guys, and an introduction to theater. And I had ideas about taking my rap stuff and any visual arts and putting it on stage with the dance. I just didn't know how to do it. It was just fantasy for me. If only I could. And I didn't know how. So when I saw that, when I was a part of that, my mind just opened up, and that was it. That was it. So I practiced more. I got involved in the show. We toured and stuff like that, and just kept going.
Wow. Okay. So when did you make this move from breaker, dancer to maker of dances?
It was probably, while we were touring Rome and Jules. Again, I had these ideas of trying to do, take the dance that, the way people understood dance, especially breaking, was one way. You had to spin, you had to flip, you had to do all of these huge moves. But I wanted to take all the little moves and put them together to give something that was just as dynamic as the big moves, just giving people a different perspective of what the dance could offer. And so when we performed with Rennie, and I was worn out like during that, because I hadn't done it before, right? So during the choreography and the stamina and all of these elements of that involve the human body and mind, I'd never experienced that. So what I thought was, if I can take the little pieces and spread them out over time, not only could I, build what was called work, but I could also sustain the movement over a period of time. Because when we break, you got 45 seconds to do a round, and then you wait till somebody else go, and then you do another 45. We were doing 5 minutes at one time on stage. That was brand new to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started thinking about choreography in that way. Like, what I couldn't do with him, I was going to do myself. What I could do with him taught me how to do better with what I was going to create. Okay. And then I applied to a residency at this place called the Community Education Center, and they gave me a bunch of studio time, a few $1,000s, and 3 nights, I think 3 days to perform in the space. So I had taken the movements that I was creating in the hotel rooms, in the mirror, in the bathroom, wherever I had a chance to, and I put it in that residency. And that's when my ideas and stuff started to unfold. So my first show was all the little pieces and routines that I had built, probably from 1996 up to 2001.
And so when did you start presenting your own work to, in performance?
It was 2002 during that residency, that grant that I got. Yeah, so that was my first show in 2002, and that work was called Olive, and it was also the name of the company that I started with a partner of mine at the time. It was called Olive Dance Theater.
Okay, yeah, I recall that. Well, and I just want to, if folks have missed out on seeing Point of Interest, the work that we presented in 2016 in Boston, it was one of the 10 best dances, according to the Boston Globe. It made the Boston Globe's best of list. So, and it was a wonderful work. So really, thank you for shifting from a breaker and a dancer to a choreographer. Because you got to share a very big vision.
Right on.
And I appreciate that. Do you want to look at any video of early work before we move into discussing the musician and the mover, or do you want to get into that conversation?
Yeah, let's look at the first video, so people can get an understanding of why I decided to switch the way I approach the dance for stage.
Okay.
So doing that every day, on top of choreography and solos, my body was going through it. You know, my legs
Yeah.
were sore, my elbows. I mean, everything was sore, and I wanted to continue to dance. I just had to figure out how I could do it over a period of time without, breaking myself up. So
Well, didn't you at one point go through a fairly catastrophic injury?
I did, and oddly enough, it was not due to the dance. No one knew how I ended up messing myself up. I just woke up one day and my neck was really sore, and I didn't pay any mind. I thought it was really, just sore from working out in the gym or whatever.
Yeah.
And then over time, I kept slowing down. Like it just hurt so bad, and I kept like fighting through the pain, just being stubborn and I guess high pain tolerance. I didn't know no better. But what was happening was my vertebrae was swelling. I had an infection in C5, C6 disc space, but the disc space between C5 and C6. It caused my vertebrae to swell and was squeezing my spinal cord. And again, here I am. I'm like, whatever. I'll get through it, and I'll go to rehearsal, and I just. But
Yeah.
the one day, dude, I just couldn't move. So I was on lorazepam, oxycontin, oxycodone, medrol-dose, vancomycin, Bactrim plugged into a drip bag twice a day for 12 weeks. It was really bad, man. It was really bad. It was really bad. And that was another moment that changed the direction of of what I was doing. So can we look at that video as well?
I'm sitting here in the bathroom stall at the Kennedy Center doing an intravenous medicine thing in the Kennedy Center in the bathroom stall doing an IV.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I during that time I figured if I was already on the floor, I might as well stay down there. So if I couldn't, there was no risk of me falling down and injuring myself. So, what we were doing as breakers, what we were doing on the floor, really close to the floor, is called text, coined by a pioneer breaker out of New York named Ken Swift. And so that movement is what I thought I wanted to explore as much as possible, to be able to sustain the idea of breaking over a period of time. And so again, being on the floor and exploring the space in that way was training and getting your body back together physically and mentally, and not having to, I could heal while I was, practicing at the same time. I couldn't hurt myself. And then I would look at some of that stuff, and I was like, this is vocabulary that I can play with even more and use for my work, and to teach all dancers, all body types, how to be aware of the space they're working in, and not be afraid to push a little bit, because even with them, if you're on the floor, there's nowhere to fall. So you can't be scared. You can't be, I can't do that, I'm not strong enough. Well, if you do it enough, it's going to strengthen you to become strong. So you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to feel like, I'm not physically strong as strong as I need to be. It's conditioning. So that went on. My friend Sabela asked me to teach at UCLA during for World Arts and Cultures program, and that's when I started to develop that form of movement over the semester, and then it started to catch on with different universities, and that's how I started to go through the university system and the dance departments, teaching this form to everybody: modern, ballet, jazz, any form of dance was invited to participate in this, which just opened them up more as practitioners of movement. Just
Yeah.
give you more tools for your toolbox.
I just want to ask the audience that if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and we will address them to Raf at the end of our conversation. He will absolutely take questions. I'm sure there are a ton of questions because I've got them just from that, but I'm going to hold off so that the audience can have an opportunity to ask them. Just write them down and we will get to them. Raf, when I saw that, and I now see Point of Interest in my mind, because I looked at some of the video of Point of Interest prior to the conversation tonight, and there's a lot resonating in that work, in what's resonating in your conversation and your history to get there. Let's talk about just your new work, if you can. This is you're working with live musicians, live jazz musicians. In a sense, there are two forms that can be both structured and improvised. What's your journey and what's the idea? Has this been have hip hop and jazz played together? Is there a history of it? Is it something new?
It's not new, but I think people are more aware of it because of rap music and jazz samples. That's about it. And this was maybe the late '80s. Gangstar, a group called Gangstar, sampled some jazz stuff, and so they became the pioneers of jazz rap. And then everyone, followed suit. But what people don't realize or don't know is in the early 80s, Max Roach did a performance with the New York City Breakers, who at the time were the premier power group, who I first saw. And so they performed with Max Roach, jazz and breaking. And it just went unseen, unheard about, unexplored, and I felt like there's some serious stuff there. There's African American improvisational street forms, right? And so if we bring those things back together, what does it look like now as an older dancer, understanding how we could play and move our bodies like musicians play and move their bodies, right? There's moments where they come together and then they separate, they improv within that structure built with the musicians. The dancers do the same thing in a routine. You have this structure, and then you break out of that, you go into a solo, you come back and you join them again. And so that's what I wanted to kind of bring back for myself. I think this work is personal, and sometimes you get too far into making work that's personal, the audience doesn't get it. So originally the work was called Sassafras, Roots to Mastery. I was trying to, put my finger on the roots of both of these things and show how they become mastered as we become adults. Jazz musicians get older, incredibly better, wiser, right? They're perfecting this master craft. Breakers have never had a chance to do that because it was always seen as a youthful form. You get to a certain point and you get out, right? There's no need for you to do it other than battling. So I just thought that this work, the concept of this work, will show that we can get older and we get better and we become, as someone told me, elegant, right? And so putting myself up against Josh, for example, Josh is incredible. He he's flying, he's spinning, he's doing all these dynamic things. And so it puts me in a place where I feel like I'm not good enough. Like the audience only wants to see that, and I'm not good enough, and they're gonna make fun of me. Maybe I should stop. Maybe I should, because they missed a point. But it's nice to watch where you're going now as an adult, right? I'll be 51 next month. So I think people are, if I didn't have this gray beard, they wouldn't know that I was 51. But I think it opens them up a little bit, like, oh my God, like this guy it's not that he has to be comparable to this little kid or this strong young man, but he's still moving well. And ultimately that's what I get out of all of this. I want to continue to move. I don't want to be the best. I'm not trying to impress or prove anything. I just want to keep going and bring this stuff to the stage in different ways as much as I can.
So in this new work, because you've mentioned the word the improvisation, is the entire piece improvised, or is it choreographed and improvised? I mean, how was your approach to the creation?
It's a little bit of both. I have to say it's structured. There's improvisation, and there's also freestyle. And I think we forget that a lot of the time that you see hip hop dancers moving, it's not improvisation, it's freestyle. They're pulling from a toolbox of things that they've done over the years.
Yeah.
Improvisation, I always say improvisation only lasts about maybe 20, 30 seconds if you're good. So being able to listen, as for the dancer and the musician, the dancer being able to listen to what's going on is going to trigger something new and fresh just for a moment, and then he goes into freestyle.
Right.
The musician is watching the dancer, and they're going to do something off the top, improv for a moment, and then going to a structured rhythm. So we both have to be aware of what's going on to move into the next step, next space, until we get on a roll, and then we start pulling from our toolbox, so it becomes freestyle. So there's moments of improv, moments of freestyle, and there's moments of choreography.
Well, everybody can see this on Friday and Saturday at the ICA Theater. For tickets, just go to globalartslive.org, or you can get tickets at the ICA box office as well. If there are any questions, now's the time to ask them, because we're going to be wrapping up real soon. It's been fantastic seeing you, Raph, and speaking with you. I just want to see if there's any questions that have come in. If there are, put them up. If not, I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. And I know you're getting into town on Thursday, and everybody, please join us this weekend. I believe it's 4 musicians and 3 dancers.
Yes.
And I've seen an excerpt of this performance, and I certainly think that there's so many components to it, because there's poetry in this performance as well. Anyway, when I saw the excerpt, has that poetry still stayed in the piece?
Oh man, yeah. And in fact, I took on the task of reciting it myself.
Okay, then.
It adds a little bit more I guess,
right,
a creative element to it, and it feels good to be able to be present the whole time, because I never like wings. I never wanted to leave the stage and come back. I want to stay on stage as long as possible, as much as possible, so I'm always engaged. And so reciting this stuff puts me in that place to do.
All right, I think we've got some late questions that have just come in. Can we put them up? I'm going to read them, and this is from Cool Kid 79. How did you choose to work with the musicians that you worked with on this project? It's a good question.
I met Bobby Zankel on this project called Blind Date, where I've known him for years, but it wasn't until I think 2011, where we were put together, couldn't rehearse, couldn't have any conversation until the day of the performance. And so I've always reached back to him and asked if he wanted to be part of my work. Anything that I did. Kim Pedro Rodriguez is a drummer. I worked with him as a rapper, actually. He asked me to, him and another guy, Homer Jackson, they work in the jazz world here, and they had always asked me to perform as a rapper with the band. So I became part of that group. And Sumi is just she's just a well-known pianist, and I was looking for a piano player at the time, and I knew some of her work and people that have worked with her, and her name kept coming up. So I just thought, let's work together and see what happened. And Jocko McNally, the bass player, he was also on these Sun Ra satellites that we were doing, and Kim Pedro was on that. So I met them all through someone else or in this jazz world in Philadelphia.
Cool. There's a question from Connie. How has it been bringing these dance styles to Princeton? Right, we didn't mention that you teach at Princeton.
Yeah, that's a weird story, but I'm so grateful for that, for being able to teach there. The kids are incredibly enthusiastic, and I think getting them to understand my approach to the dance, making it accessible for them right now, and not necessarily pulling things from the 70s up to present day. I do that, but I can't expect them to relate to that because it's not now. Circumstances are very different. So I can teach you the vocabulary, but I'm not teaching you how to break. So being in that space taught me how to teach better. And they're not dance students. They're interested in hip hop dance or breaking, right? So it gives me a place to unfold or uncover some of the things that I've been exploring for myself. So it's like fresh and new again with these kids, and to see them go, aha, or I got it, oh my God, that's how that feels good. So I'm doing something right.
Doing a lot right. Here's another one from Cool Kid 79. Has the last year and a half of COVID impacted the direction in which you decided to take this work? Oh.
A little bit. When everyone who got NDP the year before, I think it was 2 years before, that were working on a work, they all decided we're trashing the work. And I thought, I know this is the moment where this work makes sense to me. I'm not trashing it. I got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And then one day I woke up and I was like, man, I'm not feeling that idea anymore. Like, I held on to it as long as I could. So how can I make this fresh again? Which is why I learned the poetry myself. I just decided to do it myself. I added another element, another psychological element to it for myself, and I changed it to the musician and the mover, because those two things are one and the same. As a dancer, we're musicians, and as musicians, we're also movers, right? So yes, COVID switched some things for me, not in a bad way, but I think for the better, because this show I would have been done with this show.
Is there another question or not? Yep, here's another one from Connie. You were recruited into Rennie Harris's brilliant Roman Jewels. How do you recruit performers? Were you recruited or did you audition?
I just was heard about. I wasn't necessarily recruited. But I could say I was kind of recruited. Yeah, let's say that. Cricket recruited me for Pure Movement. He was known for, bringing people in. I kind of do the same thing. Like, if I see someone doing something that I feel is incredibly executed, but they're not winning battles, they're frustrated that they're not winning battles.
Mm.
But I'm looking at the movement like, yo, man, nobody's doing that over here. Let me show you how to perform on stage with that. Let me show you how to take the stuff that you're doing and put it in a new space. And
Right.
maybe they can feel like, you know, I have another life outside of battle, because everybody's not going to be able to battle or perform at that level too long. So
Yeah.
the theater world is a place to really explore those possibilities of breaker.
Yep. Can you read this one or not? I was
I was talking to Ginny
yeah.
Duan,
Yep.
founder of Boston's nonprofit focused on street and club dance and how hip hop and breaking has become commercialized. Any comments on that progression? I don't think it's commercialized the way it was in the very beginning. There are a lot of opportunities now, and you know, people are making decisions on their own as far as the dance is concerned and how they're going to get it seen. So they're not being exploited. They're not being, because that was a problem. That commercialization of the dance was because they were being exploited. I don't think that's happening anymore. We have choices. We make the decisions that we make, and we can't blame someone else for what happens with the steps that we take or where we end up as a result of that. And you know, I mean, if I was performing twice a month all year for the next 3 years, I think that's a progression of the dance moving forward. But some people will consider that commercializing the dance, right? Or I'm benefiting from this dance that someone else created. So it's all about perspective, how you look at it. So I mean, that's an ongoing thing for the past 40 years. So that's all in the eye of the person.
Right. Good. Thanks, Raph. Any other questions? Don't think so. Thank you so much for the questions. They were all great questions, and we look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Yep.
And Raph, safe journeys to Boston.
Thank you, Maury.
And good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.